Hello everybody! Today I will talk about the Opel Astra J, which in Europe is the fourth generation, and if there are people from Great Britain watching this, in Great Britain this is a Vauxhall, so it's a Vauxhall Astra. I'm owning this car for 1 year already, and that's why I'm doing this clip. I want to talk in this clip what is my opinion after living with the Astra for 1 year, in which I did almost 23,000 kilometers, which in miles is around 14,300 kilometers. Okay, so no worries, I will keep talking in kilometers, and for those of you who are from Britain, I will put on the screen the conversion in miles where it is necessary. Let me tell you a little about this car. So I bought this car used from a relative of mine who was living in Germany. It's still living in Germany at the moment of the filming. It was a car that was very maintained. The owners and the previous owners took a lot of care of it. When I bought it, it had 148,000 kilometers on the clock. Now it has almost 171,000. This car was made in 2014. It's a sports tourer, and it has the diesel engine, the 1.6 diesel engine, not the 1.7, the new at that time, the new 1.6, developing 136 horsepower. This is an engine that, at least in Romania, I saw some in Great Britain on forums too, some people are running from it because they are afraid of the timing chain, because it has some rattlings. And to be honest, it has some rattlings when you start the engine, but trust me, you don't need to worry. You need to worry when those rattlings appear when you are driving the car. But Opel is saying, and Vauxhall, Opel is saying that it's quite normal when you start the car for 10 seconds, they are saying, but in my car it's like 30 seconds to hear that rattling. So some people are just afraid of this, and they hurry to change the timing chain, and it's quite expensive because you need to take out the engine in order to change the timing chain. You need to do this only if the rattling it's becoming very noisy and when you are driving it. If you hear it when you start the engine, then just don't worry, just take care of the car, maintain it. I will talk about this later, how to maintain it in order to keep it running without any problems. And this is a great engine if you know how to maintain it. Let me tell you now about the costs that I had with this car during this year. I will mention the prices in Romanian leu, but on the screen you will see it mentioned in euros and in sterling pound. There is not much to say because I had no problems with this car in the past year since I own it. I changed the brake pads because they got to a level where they were making a horrible creak, and if you are driving the car, you are hearing that creak everywhere. So I had to change the brake pads, and the brake pads, all 4 of them, cost me 700 Romanian leis. And because I bought this car only with summer tires, I had to buy some winter tires. So I bought some Nexon winter tires, which I recommend. They are a Korean brand and they have a very good report price per quality. To be honest, they are good. They are not some unknown Chinese brands or something like this. They are very good and I recommend them. Other thing, what I did was to change the oil and the filters every 8 to 10,000 kilometers. So I did this 3 times. First time when I bought the car, second time after 8,000 kilometers, and third time last month in July 2021 after 10,000 kilometers. This car requires around 5.1, 5.2 liters. In some specifications on the internet you will see 5 liters, but it requires a little bit more, and because it's around 5.2 liters, you have to buy 6 liters of oil. But no worries, you will not use too much the remaining liters because this car has little to no oil consumption. For example, now I added some 100 grams after 3,000 kilometers. Usually, sometimes I'm adding some oil, sometimes I don't, but it's, as I said, the oil consumption is very little to none. So In Romania, I paid for 6 liters of oil when I changed it, and also the 4 filters: the oil filter, the diesel filter, or petrol filter, which is under the car in the back, air filter, and that filter that you find it inside. So all 4 filters, I changed them every time, even if it was under 1 year. For example, the second when I changed the oil the second time was January 2021, and then the third time it was now in July, only after 6 months, because I did a lot of kilometers. So all this operation with changing the oil, the filters, and of course what you pay at the car shop to change all this, cost me around 600 to 650 lei each time I did this. 1 year of owning this car, 23,000 kilometers, 0 problems. Even with this engine, 1.6 diesel, that some are afraid of. Why? Because I maintain this car. What does that mean? Meaning, change the oil each 8 to 10,000 kilometers. I am putting it premium gas in it, to protect the engine, to have better performance. Okay, it will cost a little bit more, but on the longer term, I will be in advantage, because I will not pay a lot to repair this car if I maintain it. And that's the problem of many people. These cars had some problems with the 1.7 engines, but not that much with the injectors, especially those with 125 and 130 horsepower. But I had no problem with this car, not even with the timing chain. Even if it's rattling a little bit when I start the car, that's no problem. It's a problem, as I said, when you hear it rattling when you drive it. Then, of course, that's a problem. I know how to use this car. For example, out of those 23,000 kilometers that I did in the past year, I don't know if I had 1,000 kilometers with this car in the city. I use it very, very rare in the city. Some people are also having problems in this type of Astras with the particulate filter, with the diesel particulate filter. At least in Romania, most of the people who are having this problem, they confess that they are using the car in the city. You don't use a diesel in the city. The diesel is not made for city driving. And that's why I have no problem in this car with the diesel particulate filter, because I'm using this car only on longer roads. For example, in the city I have a smaller car that runs on petrol. I don't even hear it when it regenerates, the particulate filter. I don't even hear it. 0 problems with this car. It runs very good because it's a diesel and I'm using it for what it was created, meaning on longer roads, not in the city. Diesel is not for the city. Of course, I have 0 problems, as I said, because I'm changing oil each 8 to 10,000 kilometers and I'm putting it premium gas in it. I'm generally happy with this car. Very, very happy. But there are 2 small things that I don't like. First of it, it's that this car, which is typical from what I understood for this model, it has some creaks inside. Especially here, just above the clocks. This is the worst material in this car. This car has generally some good and soft touch plastics, But here, I don't know what was in their mind. This plastic is very cheap and nasty. And because of that, sometimes it has some creaks. Not very often. Let's say maybe I heard it 4 or 5 times in 1 year, but still there were. And also you can hear some creaks here in the pillar inside, where it's the button to raise up or to pull down the seat belt. Also some creaks. Lately, this one, I mean, in the past several weeks, I started to hear these creaks here, but for the almost past year, I didn't hear it until recently. And 2 times I heard some creaks, somewhere around here. I don't know why. So, yeah, if you are not, a guy who or a girl, maybe it's a woman who has this car, who wants to have everything neat and perfectly, then you can live with this. Another thing that I don't like is that if you are for example, when you wash the car or when it rains heavily, there are some drops of waters that are getting it inside the window, but happily it doesn't reach on the, for example, on the seats. It just stays here on the window. There are only some drops, and also this happens on the right side. So both doors, both back doors, it's happening this. And again, there are some water infiltrations here. You can see, maybe you can see it here, because it enters somewhere here if there is a lot of water that it's being thrown in the car. But again, this water doesn't reach the trunk, doesn't reach the parcel shelf. It only goes somewhere here. So there are only a few drops. These are the two things that I didn't like with this car. Otherwise, I am very happy with it. So this is my conclusion. From a scale from 0 to 10, I would give it a 9.5 because of those two small things that I don't like. Otherwise, I'm very happy with it, as I said. But there is a but, because I maintain this car. I carefully maintained this car, and it's better to maintain carefully a car. It's better to buy, for example, some more expensive gas. It's better to change the oil more often than to pay a lot on repairs on the longer term. For example, from all the cars that I have owned, I would put this on the first place. It is the most reliable car that I owned until now. After a year, we will see it. I hope it will remain that in the next several years also. On the second place, I would put the Volkswagen Fox, the small one, you know, that I'm using it in the city. Poor little guy has almost 13 years old, and only now it's starting to show its age and having some small problems. On the third place, I will put the first Astra that I drove. It was my father's Astra, but I drove it in my first 2 years as a driver. It was an Astra J. You all know it. On the fourth place, I would put the Renault Megane, my first personal car that I had from the second generation. It was a quite reliable car, but you know, typical for Renault, it has some electrical problems, some small ones. On the fifth place, I would put the Ford Mondeo, which I owned for 6 years. So it's the car that I owned the most until now. But you know, that car required a lot of money to maintain, sadly. But it was a nice car, just that it required a lot of money. And on the last place, the sixth one, I would put the Dacia Logi that I owned for less than 1 year. But it was not that I like Dacia, just that that car had almost 500,000 kilometers. And the guy that I bought it from tricked me with some things. It was a very abused car. And that's why it is on the last place, but not because Dacia is a bad brand. It's a brand that I like it, just because that specific car was an abused car with 500,000 kilometers. So this is the clip. I hope you like it. If you like what I post, I will make a playlist with English videos from this channel, because most of them are in Romanian, but I will keep producing also English videos. If you like it, just consider subscribing. I'm not forcing anyone to subscribe like others are doing. Subscribe, push that button. No. If you like it and you think it's worth subscribing, I would be happy with it. If not, there is no problem. Everyone does what they consider. And hear you in the next video.